The shadows were so thick, they seemed to ooze down the walls, a blackening molasses clotting every corner with clutching darkness. The ovals of our flashlights flit like foxfire across the swamps of rainwater that had seeped through the ceiling's many infirmities. The derelict school was a rotten mess, that much was obvious, if not the source for its abandonment. It was closed immediately after the incident, and Naria's soul returned to see the school's end-of-life needs, allowing the forces of nature to reclaim it with a terrible enthusiasm. Our goal was to make a name for ourselves as paranormalists, and what better way than to investigate the infamous Underschool? So, there we were, Ted, Lewis, and me, haunting the halls of the infamous school for stolen children, various energy meters and EVP recorders in tow. We moved through the rooms with a practiced disappointment, as so many so-called haunted locations were anything but. And though the history of our most recent location was by far the most terrifying, over 20 hauntless houses in a row had severely crippled our expectations to fright. So, one room after the next, despite the exceptional props of the ruined school, we wandered with rapidly diminishing enthusiasm. Certainly, one of the least interesting metrics of a haunted hunt would have to be its electromagnetic grating, as it's the least reliable sign of ghosts. More often than not, it's merely a fine indication for unseen wires and various cell phone emissions. So, naturally, when the EMF detector started to chirp, none of us were particularly excited. As I said, there are 1,000,001 prosaic reasons that things can go off, so we had no good reason to suspect that this instance should prove any different. We appeared to be in a gymnasium, or perhaps lunch hall, and the empty space did well to amplify the sounds of our meters, granting them a darkly echoing presence that did well to somewhat refresh our flagging curiosity in the unknown. And only after we'd exhausted our quest for an ordinary cause for the energy disturbance, we did begin to feel that signature surge of adrenaline and fear, the nectar of the netherworld. We quickly launched into another road of paranormal investigation, the search for dead voices. Each one of us was equipped with a small digital voice recorder, and in seconds we were wandering the darkness of the huge room, posing questions to the open air, hoping for the dead to respond. As is canon within the paranormal, should any of the dead respond to our queries, their messages would only be audible upon the replaying of the sound recorders, as apparently, machines make better listeners than the living. After the preset time for collecting ghostly voices had expired, we all gathered in the center of the massive, ruined room, regarding our recorders with some small degree of awe, as if something wonderfully terrible might reside within them. As the group leader, I played back my audio first. Initially, there was only the sound of my many and very unanswered questions, all of them entirely routine. Is anyone here? How did you die? What is your name? But after about the 10th silence or so, there came a voice that belonged to none of us. All it said was, "Come downstairs." It was a child's voice, and barely audible. It was also the only anomalous sound on any of our recorders. Now we were excited. No doubt every one of us were imagining how that voice might sound when replayed on any number of the popular paranormal TV shows, our insightful voices narrating the terrifying scene. Almost forgetting to be frightened, we did exactly what the voice had instructed. After exiting the gymnasium, we searched out the first set of stairs that went down. After we entered the stairwell at the end of a long and littered hallway, we heard doors slam and lock. It was almost too vulgar a commotion to assume a paranormal origin. We immediately began calling out to whomever made the sounds, all while trying the doors at every floor. All locked. Via some quick chatter, we figured ourselves the victims of a well-played practical joke. The dorky Ghostbusters scared out of their proton packs. But while that assumption had been collectively agreed upon, I was certain all of us began to inwardly suspect another cause altogether. We tried to abandon the stairwell for several doors at various landings, but they were all locked. We were trapped, and as a certain inversion of luck would have it, when we reached the bottom of the stairs, we found the basement door ajar, where the incident had occurred. Despite our terror, we aimed our cameras at the door, more from the need to place a layer of detachment between ourselves and our terrifying surroundings than anything else. Trembling, we opened the door. Our lights shot to the center of the room, where all the children had disappeared through a massive hole in the basement floor. A hole that led so far down into the caverns underlying the school that no one had ever reached the bottom. But the hole was supposed to have been bricked up, cordoned off. Yet, there it was, a fresh pit, broken concrete scattered around its mouth, as if something had punched its way up from below. Children's desks crowded around the edges, a chalkboard set up a few feet away. The words scrawled on the board read, "Visitors' Day." Then a deafening school bell rang. Suddenly, all the locked doors slammed open, waves of tiny feet descending. We might have tried to hold the basement door shut if it weren't for the thing that rose from the pit. It was a sock puppet, 10 feet tall if it was an inch. I never looked at the children as they crowded past us and quietly took their seats. The eyes of the teacher were massive and round, huge black buttons sewed in place. Its mouth seemed filled with jutting black teeth, yet were only claws from the fingertips inserted within the puppet. Fingertips belonging to a 10-foot hand whose wrist was visible between where the gigantic sock abruptly ended and the yawning pit began. My fright saw me run out of the classroom and slam the door behind me. I left my team, my friends, behind. But before my cowardice could whisk me out of the room, I heard a sugary sing-song voice trill from deep within the pit, the mouth of the puppet moving as if it were speaking.
"My children are ravenous learners, gentlemen. I do hope you can satisfy them."